Welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today I'm going to be doing a tier list for the upcoming Rainbow Six Siege Major in Sweden, in Jonkoping, known as the Jonkoping Major because this is actually the second major that we've had in Sweden. The first one was just called the Sweden Major, and this one, well, you couldn't call it Sweden Major again. Name's already taken. Yeah, you could call it like Sweden Major 2021, 2022, but I think the official branding is that one's the Sweden Major, this one is the Jonkoping Major, and maybe that's not the exact right pronunciation, but I think it's something like that. Also, if you want to make this tier list yourself, I didn't actually make this one. I just used somebody else's. Usually I make my own, but this one was pretty good, so I rocked with it. Just go to tier maker and then search like R6 Jonkoping Major, Jonkoping, I think. Major, and it should be like the first one that comes up. So what does this mean exactly? Down here I'm going to have the teams that I'm going to predict to get last place in their group, fourth place, and then the third place teams from the groups. These are the teams that will go out in the quarterfinals, teams that will go out in the semifinals, the loser of the grand final, and then the winner of the grand final. And okay, let's talk about the teams. I guess let's talk about the seeding first. Each group has one team from each region, so APAC, LATAM, EU, and NA. And they also have one seed of each seed type. So first seed, second seed, third seed, fourth seed. NA and EU they're just the top four teams from their league from stage 3. In LATAM, it's a little bit different. The top four teams from Brazil's league go up against 4 non-Brazilian Latin American teams, and the Brazilian teams always win, and well, they have here. So turns out it is just the top 4 teams from the regular stage, but their seeds can be rearranged based on how they play in the bracket. W7M is the top seed. They were actually the top team from the regular season and the Copa Elite Six. First time that's happened for them. They got first place in the regular season stages 1 and 2, but they lost in the grand final, so they ended up with second seed. But no, first seed for them this time around. And then APAC, it's the top 2 teams from APAC North, top 2 teams from APAC South. They gave the priority, I guess, to APAC North. So the top 2 teams from APAC North were Cyclops and Sandbox. They were given the first seed and the third seed. And then the top 2 teams from APAC South, which were Direwolves and Fury, were given the second and fourth seeds. Okay, so I'll read them down the line in case you're not familiar with their logos. We have in Group A, Cyclops, Sonics, M&M, and Black Dragons. In Group B, we have TSM, Liquid, Sandbox, and Heroic. In Group C, we have W7M, BDS, Space Asian, and Fury. And in Group D, we have Wolves, Direwolves, FaZe, and Mirage. Yes, they are both called Wolves. One is Direwolves and one is just Wolves, and they are in the same group. And okay, so let's get to ranking. So we'll just go down the line based on how I have them arranged here. Let's start with Group A. And so, yeah, starting with Cyclops, the top seed out of APAC, the number 1 seed from APAC North, I guess, very easily the Sandbox should be the top seed. But they just gave it to APAC North, or not Sandbox, sorry, Direwolves. Okay, they've been to several international events. I don't think they've ever made it out of groups, at least not recently. I think it was SI 2020 or 2021. I guess that would have been 2021. They were one of only 2 teams, I think, to not make it out of groups. So not doing too well there. And then I think they've gone to 2 of the recent majors, and they didn't make it out of groups either time there. They're usually unpredictable, but I think that unpredictability has become predictable at this point. Usually, maybe teams get caught off guard a little bit at the beginning of the event, and then they adapt to them, and then Cyclops falls off hard. So I don't expect them to make it out of this group. I do think that probably this is the trickiest group to call. It seems like this is the one where any combination of these teams could make it out. I think the other ones are a little bit more well-defined, but I still don't think they're going to make it out. I think if one APAC team makes it out, it'll probably be them or Sandbox, but I think Sandbox group is tougher. So even though maybe Sandbox is a better team, the harder group might make the difference there. Cyclops, I expect last place in their group. I wouldn't be surprised third place. I would be a little bit surprised for them to make it out, but not super shocked. And then that leaves Sonics, M&M, and Black Dragon. So Black Dragon's sort of an unknown entity when it comes to international play. They just pretty narrowly missed out on making the major last stage, and they did make it here as the 4th seed for LATAM, but they've looked really, really strong. And again, they looked pretty strong in stage 2, even though they choked making the major. And then I think their closest competition is probably M&M. I think Sonics make it out. I think that's a pretty popular opinion. Well, there's been a little bit of volatility with the roster. They did just recently make 2 roster changes, but it is a pretty stacked roster overall. Maybe they don't make it all the way, but I think they're the most likely to make it out of this group. And then, yeah, M&M or Black Dragon. So M&M's gone to a few events. They've gone to at least one major. They went to the most recent SI, and not spectacular performances, but I think they've maybe been getting better little by little. I think they do sort of have an issue where a couple other players perform and then maybe they stop performing, somebody else steps up, but none of them are really all firing on all cylinders at the same time. If they can get their trio of, who is it, Uzis, Solotov, and Tyrant to all frag out at the same time, they'll be an absolute menace, but usually one or two of them aren't performing as well as the other ones. I guess I'll go with Black Dragons. Again, maybe they're the underdogs here just because of their lack of international experience, but well, M&M's international experience being less than stellar makes it sort of hard to call. I guess I'll go with Black Dragons here, so M&M goes there. All right. Then we have TSM, Liquid, Sandbox, Heroic. This seems like the easiest one to call. Maybe Sandbox makes it out, maybe Heroic makes it out, but I mean, realistically, TSM and Liquid seem like shoo-ins. Liquid, they very often get predicted to win events, and then they never win events. They have Lagonis now instead of PSK. That could be the difference maker, or maybe this is just the lucky event where Nesk and Palu finally take it down. Sandbox, Heroic. Who's going to get last place? I guess I'll go with Sandbox. It could easily, well, I don't think Heroic's that bad. I don't think they're like an amazing team. Same sort of thing for Sandbox, and I might be undervaluing them just off the basis of it being an APAC team. I'm just going to do this, actually, because otherwise it's going to be all APAC teams in the last tier, and nobody wants that. I guess I'll go with this, but it's not very important. Okay, moving on to Group C, W7M, BDS, Space Station, and Fury. I think a lot of people were saying this was the group of death, and it depends what you favor. I think maybe W7M, BDS, SSG looks scarier than Liquid, TSM, and either Heroic or Sandbox, but Fury looks worse than Sandbox and Heroic. So depending if you like the fact that this group's more top heavy or that the other one's a little bit more balanced, up to interpretation, I suppose. But W7M, perhaps the tournament favorite. They've been so incredibly dominant within the region. First place all three stages, second place in Copa Elite 6, stages 1 and 2, first place this stage, only dropping 5 games in the regular stages 1, 2, and 3. They went 22-5. Like that's so insane, and not a very good performance in Charlotte, but they were hampered by having to play online, and then they made it pretty far in Berlin. They didn't quite make it all the way, but perhaps this is their tournament to win. Nobody's predicting them to go out in groups. I'd be very surprised for that to happen. And I mean, yeah, Fury, it is what it is. If you get some wins, if you make it out of your groups, incredible, but not a lot of expectations on your shoulders. That leaves BDS and Space Station. Perhaps the popular pick is BDS, but I don't think it's a massive underdog pick to go with Space Station. And well, if you know me, I'm gonna go with Space Station here. BDS, I think maybe are a little bit overrated, and also they're sort of they're being reimagined. They're figuring things back out. They brought in Leakafak, I think it's Leakafak, to replace Rafal, and they've been looking pretty good. Not amazing. They didn't end up as the first seed, but second seed out of Europe is still pretty good. Space Station looked completely revitalized, and I think they can take on BDS. That's perhaps my most anticipated matchup of the group stage, SSG versus BDS. I do think both of those teams versus W7M should also be very, very good to watch, but perhaps as a little bit controversial of a pick, I'm going to have BDS going out in third place there. And then finally, Group D, Wolves, Dire Wolves, FaZe, and Mirage. So I really want Mirage to make it out. Well, it's an NA team, first of all. Second of all, they're a pretty big underdog, and what a comeback story it is for an org, if nothing else, being easily the worst team in NA in stages 1 and 2, and then making the major stage 3 after changing out a few players. But I mean, I can't really predict them to make it out. I'm going to give them third place, though. I'm going to give Dire Wolves last place. Dire Wolves went to the Charlotte Major. They got third place in their group, but that was because there were only 3 teams in the group. They got a win over Team 1 and a loss to Team 1, and then 2 losses to Oxygen. They didn't do especially well. They got a little bit of experience under their belts, I suppose, but I don't have a lot of faith in them, as I don't have a lot of faith in the APAC region, but I'm always happy to be proven wrong in that regard. And so that leaves Wolves and FaZe. Okay, so let's start to figure out who is going to be eliminated in playoffs. This is when things get really, really tricky, because even if I predict things 100% correctly for the groups, if I correct not only who is going to be eliminated in groups, but also who is going to get the first and second seeds in each group, I still don't know who's going to play against whom. So if you assume Sonics is going to get first seed, they'll play against a second seed from somebody that isn't Black Dragons. They'll play against a second seed from group B, C, or D, and then apply that formula to all the other seeds, all the other groups. But I just don't know what the bracket's going to look like. So I'll sort of be qualitatively assessing things. I'm just going to make things up at this point. That's about all you can do. So Who do I think is going to advance past quarterfinals? W7M definitely seems like they have the sauce. They probably, I think almost certainly they're the tournament favorite. They've been so incredibly good, and I mean, what else can you say? Pretty much inscrutable. Whereas all these other teams have had their issues. TSM were very, very good this stage, but it's still, you know, their first stage doing good in a little while. They were pretty bad stages 1 and 2, and Space Station back in form, Liquid with a roster change, Black Dragon sort of new to international scene, Sonics with changes. Wolves and FaZe are a little bit of constants, and FaZe even being very consistently good internationally. Probably I'll advance them. You know, they were the runners-up at just the most previous major, so they're the highest-ranking team from the last major at this major because Rogue isn't here. And they also, you know, they did pretty well at the most recent SI. They were the winners of the last Sweden major, so maybe they'll get back-to-back Sweden majors, but we'll have to see. I'll put them in the top 4 and 2 more teams. I guess TSM, I think most people from what I've seen, their tier list, they have TSM in like 1st or 2nd, maybe 3rd or 4th, but most people I've seen have TSM in the grand final, and not for no reason. TSM very, very good, top seed out of NA. Didn't really take many losses, didn't falter much at all. They look really, really good with the new additions of Gasher and Snake, and we'll see if that applies to the international stage. Snake did play in the Saudi Arabia tournament, so he has a little bit of international experience. Gasher doesn't have any, so will they crumble under the pressure? We'll have to see. And then, I mean, you know I got to do a Space Station. I'm going to advance them. Black Dragon's easy for me to put here. This is where I expect them to place, but, well, maybe they'll exceed my expectations. Liquid, bona fide chokers, but maybe Lagoatness will change that up. We'll have to see. I'm going to put them here. And maybe this is against contrary opinion, but come on, I can't just have like all the LATAM teams making it through. And then Wolves, perhaps the best team out of EU. I mean, some people might say BDS, but Wolves back-to-back first place in EU, stages 2 and 3 is nothing to sneeze at. And then Sonics, you know, I'd love to see them advance, but we'll see how they play in groups. Maybe I'll reevaluate things, but for now I'm going to have them going out here. And then, okay, let's pretend that W7M plays TSM and FaZe plays SSG. We're just gonna go with that. And that way it can't be W7M and TSM in the grand final like everyone else has. So I'm gonna be a special little snowflake for this one. Okay, this is what I'm gonna go with. All right, so I sort of already predetermined this. W7M winning the event. It seems like the most likely of any team winning it in that they are, the favorite. And SSG, probably it's more realistic if you had like FaZe or TSM or Liquid here. I think SSG could easily do it. Well, maybe not easily. I think they have about as good a shot as anyone else I have making it out of groups. Maybe not like Black Dragons, but I guess I wouldn't be super surprised to see any of these teams except for Black Dragons win it. That would be a bit of a Cinderella story for Black Dragons, but I could realistically see any of these 7 winning the event, with some of them maybe more likely than others, but because I am a Space Station fan the way I am, I'm going to put them here. I won't have them winning the event, but I'd love to see it happen. I'll do this just to be a little bit more realistic. So yeah, that's going to be my list. I guess I have APAC team and Heroic in the bottom here. I gave Sandbox the pity 3rd place, even though, you know, I think I have the most faith in them of any of the APAC teams at the event. Mirage, BDS, M&M. I'd love to see Mirage make it through. I wouldn't be shocked to see BDS make it through, or M&M, maybe. We'll see. And then Sonics, I'd love to see a deeper run from them as well. Liquid, I guess if there's any LATAM team that I'm rooting for, well, probably Black Dragons because of the underdog factor. But Liquid, I think Lagonis is very good. I think Paulo and Nesk are perhaps just the best duo in Siege, and you know, not really too much to show for it at the moment. So it'd be cool to see them win an event. And then Wolves, if an EU team is going to win it, probably they're, well, I don't know if I'd expect, obviously I have BDS placing lower, but if I was going to have one winning the whole tournament, and I said the 7 teams I wouldn't be surprised to win, I guess I'll throw in BDS. So there's 8 teams that I wouldn't be surprised to see win the event, even though, yeah, I do have BDS going on in groups, but, you know, I had to make room for my boys on Space Station there. So yeah, that's going to do it for me. I am making a video either tomorrow or the next, well, on Saturday or Sunday. Not sure if this video will be uploaded on Friday or Saturday. But yeah, I'm going to be making a video on a fantasy league for the upcoming tournament. So you might remember the fantasy league I did for the previous major. It's the same fantasy league. They're changing things up a little bit. If you're interested in that, definitely check out that video. Or if, I mean, yeah, so if you haven't done it before, or even if you did it last time and you want to do this one again, they've they've been doing events for NA and then also EU. So maybe you've been keeping up with that, but if you're just interested in the majors, you know, definitely check that out. Check out the video and I'll tell you what it's about. So yeah, that's going to do it for me. I will catch you guys in the next video.